Welcome back. So next lesson I'm going to start working with the Entity framework, but before I do that I want to add an extra controller right here just to kind of do a recap of the entire clean architecture setup we have available right here using the onion architecture. Now first of all, I've added a Shangros controller right here, which is just a second controller, just like the videos controller. There's now also a Shangros controller, and that one has just a get request right now with a get all, which just return a list of the Shangros. You can just go and check out previous videos to figure this one out. Now inside that one I've created a new iShangros service, which is of course our interface to represent the core of our setup right here. So there I made a small iShangros service right here, which pretty much just contains a way to read all Shangros as it is right now. And that Shangros service needs an implementation, right? So for the implementation, I made a Shangros service right here, and the Shangros service implementation pretty much just for now reads all the Shangros using the Shangros repository. And it passes in this iShangros repository from the outside, so of course I also need that one. Before I explain this one, let's jump down to the startup file, because another thing I did is, of course, I had to set up these new scopes right here for the Shangros repository and the Shangros service in order to kind of make a dependency injection later on. So let's start with the service. I added scope saying I need the Shangros service interface to kind of bind together to this Shangros service right here, so that we can start reading all whenever we need them. And the reason I did that is then the controller can actually just dependency inject the Shangros service if it needs it. And just so you know, if I needed to, I could actually dependency inject now the same service into the videos controller if I wanted to. And I didn't have to do anything else in order to kind of use that one. It would just automatically be dependency injected right here. So that's a possibility now. If you want to use your different services in other classes, you can pretty much just do it by adding dependency injection like this, and you don't have to do anything else. Automatically now it will be available. I might need that to check out if a Shangros exists before I even try to create any type of data right here. I won't do that now. I just want to show you guys the dependency injection is pretty neat there, because you can pretty much go and dependency inject this in any class now because we set up the scope right here. Let's talk about the repository, because why do we need that? Well, since we have now an interface for the implementation class of Shangros service, we also need an interface right here for the Shangros repository. And that's kind of why we need this one as well. And let's jump into the Shangros repository. Right now it's very simple. It's just a find all and a read by ID. That's all I have right now in the Shangros repository. And if we look at the service again, all I'm using the repository for right now is just to read all. So I don't even use the read by ID yet, but we will make that in future videos when we have the Entity framework up and running to do some real database work. So the final thing we need to understand is, even though we have a Shangros repository in our core, we also need an implementation for that, right? The interface is not good enough. We need an implementation. So what I did is I added a scope, of course, also for the Shangros repository, explaining that this is going to be my Shangros repository as it is right now. And the Shangros repository just creates two simple Shangros to seed the database, and then we use those Shangros in order to find and read by ID. I used a couple of link queries right here, and we'll talk more about those later on as well. Okay, let's try and actually go back to the Shangros controller. And again, the steps are that the Shangros controller will call the Shangros service, which will of course, using dependency injection, be this guy, the Shangros service. The Shangros service will call the Shangros repository, which will, using dependency injection, of course, be this guy down here, and then we'll get the data from the database. That's how easy it works. So that is it for this video. Now you know how easy it is to create a new controller for Shangros that will pretty much go all the way down to our data layer. And next lesson, we'll change that data layer into being an actual database using SQLite. So see you next time. Bye.